The epistle for the second Sunday after Easter, Good Shepherd Sunday, is taken from the first epistle of St. Peter. Dearly beloved, Christ suffered for us, leaving you an example that you should follow his steps, who did no sin, neither was guile found in his mouth, who when he was reviled did not revile, when he suffered he threatened not, but delivered himself to him that judged him unjustly, who his own self bore our sins in his body upon the tree, that we, being dead to sin, should live to justice, by whose stripes you were healed. For you were as sheep gone astray, but you are now converted to the shepherd and bishop of your souls. And the gospel is taken from that of St. John. At that time Jesus said to the Pharisees, I am the good shepherd. The good shepherd giveth his life for his sheep. But the hireling and he that is not the shepherd, whose own the sheep are not, seeth the wolf coming, and leaveth the sheep and flieth. And the wolf catcheth and scattereth the sheep. And the hireling flieth because he is a hireling, and he hath no care for the sheep. I am the good shepherd, and I know mine, and mine know me. As the Father knoweth me, and I know the Father, and I lay down my life for my sheep. And other sheep I have that are not of this fold, them also I must bring, and they shall hear my voice, and there shall be one fold and one shepherd. Thus are the words of the gospel. I lay down my life for my sheep. In the name of the Father, and the Son, and the Holy Ghost. Amen. Today we celebrate this feast of Good Shepherd Sunday, the second Sunday after Easter, where, of course, with the epistle and the gospel, both speaking to us about the goodness of Christ. Christ who went so far as to lay down his very life for us, dying on the cross to cancel our debt of sin, in order to reopen the gates of heaven which have been closed by sin. We should therefore highly appreciate this work that he has done, and to show this appreciation, cooperate, do our part, take the proper care that is needed for salvation. Because this is what we have been created for. We've been created for salvation. Things are made here on earth even. We make things for purposes. Purposes that, unless they fulfill those purposes, we soon decide they're either defective. We have a car, if it doesn't run, to take us somewhere. That's why we usually get in a car, so that we can go somewhere. We don't go out and just sit in the car because that's what we enjoy doing. I like to sit in my car for 3 hours a day because it's so fun. We don't do that normally. It has a purpose, the vehicle. Likewise, other things that man makes. We make them for purposes. Thus, God has made us for the purpose of salvation. A very important business for us, and yet, how sadly it is often neglected. This business of our salvation should claim our attention, our chief attention. It is the most important work we have to do here on earth. Amongst the duties that we have, and we have other duties that we have to carry on, our daily duties of life, our duties towards our family, our duties towards employers, our duties towards others. We have duties. But the most important duty is our salvation. This is evident from the fact that the soul is of immeasurable value. How do we know this? Well, we only need to examine the soul. Look at the excellences that are there. Amongst them, we have three that especially show how high the soul's dignity is. We have the spiritual faculties of the soul, the fact that it has intellect and free will, understanding and free will. It has the power of thinking. It's not our bodies that do this, it's our soul that does this. It forms judgments. It draws conclusions. That's the understanding, the intellect at work. It is also, we are all conscious of the ability to freely choose. That's the free will. Thus, man has this mind that distinguishes him from other animals, from brute animals. And as we know, this is what makes him like to God, to the angels. The fact that he has these spiritual faculties, the faculties of the soul. Indeed, it's the mind that is the source of all the great works of man. Down through the history of man. It's the mind that is the source. So we have these spiritual faculties which show the dignity of the soul. Also the fact that it is immortal. All of the creatures, except for man and the angels, of course, eventually separate into component parts and cease to exist. Even for man, his body does this. But it's not so with the human soul. It is not composed of different elements. Yes, there are faculties, but the soul in itself is simple, and so cannot be dissolved. It's simple, a simple and spiritual thing, like the angels. So by its nature, it is immortal and imperishable. It is also, it has been created, as I said, for a certain end. And this end that it's created for is a supernatural end. In other words, it's above our nature to obtain. We need help to do this. But still, that end is there. While the body and all other things are created for the soul, they are means for it to obtain its end. It is in itself created for God to be united to Him, to enter into His joy and glory. And not for a momentary, for a brief second, but for all eternity. So it has the spiritual faculties, it's immortal, and it has a supernatural end. These three show the soul's dignity. And this also is something that's spoken to us by unquestionable authorities. This true worth of the soul, this high dignity of the soul. First of all, God Himself. Our Lord coming upon this earth, teaching us. We have His teachings, not all of them, but the most important in the Bible. His words, "What does it profit a man if he gain the whole world and suffer the loss of his own soul? Or what shall a man give in exchange for his soul?" It's very clear how precious the soul is. The most precious thing that we have, that's been given to us. The soul is more valuable than the whole world. All the riches, all the honors, all the pleasures. God himself tells us this. It's a shame that we ourselves don't realize this. How often, how many times in a day do we, well, that's what sin is, not recognizing this, not recognizing how valuable our souls are. For a brief pleasure, for riches, or an honor, how often our pride wells up and we forget this fact. How valuable our soul is and the purpose for which it's been created. We have to remember also that in God's works, the works that we see all around us, creation, it's all been created for the sake of our souls. For the sake of man's soul, all this has been done. The body that's been given to us, it's quite a masterpiece. Down through the ages, works of art, we see this masterpiece as it's portrayed. It catches man's attention. It's something beautiful, the body. How much study has gone into the body. Trying to gain the knowledge that it can give to us. Only a fraction of a percent have we gained the knowledge of the body. And yet it's there, not an end in itself, it's to serve the soul. And it's not only the body, all that takes place in the universe, all of creation, made, or we can say ordained, or permitted by God for the sake of souls. Why do things happen in the world? Why do we have this present crisis, this pandemic, which the world labels it as a pandemic? Why do we have this? For the sake of souls. What good could come from this if souls would use it properly? Would use it to reflect on their eternity? All this has been ordained by God, permitted by God for the sake of souls. And God hasn't stopped there. He's gone even further for the sake of souls. Giving himself, the Good Shepherd, becoming man to take care of his flock, dying on the cross, even giving his life for his flock. I lay down my life for my sheep. And he hasn't even stopped here, but he's gone further and given us his church, in which he continues his work on behalf of souls. Through his priests, through the sacraments that he's given to us, especially the Holy Sacrament of the altar, the Holy Eucharist, where he is present to lavish his graces and favors upon us. He is truly the Good Shepherd. So God himself has done all this to prove to us how precious our souls are. We have others, the saints down through the ages, what they have done and suffered to secure their soul's salvation. It also shows us how important the soul is, how precious the soul is. How many of them abandoned great wealth, abandoned honors or pleasures for salvation, for the good of their souls. They lived in the world but were not of the world. How many sacrifices they made for the good of their soul, and not only for the good of their own soul, but for the good of other souls. Carrying the gospel of Christ to all nations. Going through many hardships to preach this gospel of salvation. St. Paul himself telling us of all the things that he went through. Shipwreck. We think about it, it's quite terrifying. Imagine being lost in the middle of the sea amongst all the sharks or whatever else is in the sea. The sacrifices he makes. Being stoned. So it's not only the sea, false brethren, as he tells us. Being stoned for Christ. Being stoned for the salvation of his soul. So the saints also give us this, have laid down their lives to show how important the salvation of the soul is. And it's not only God and the saints, but also we see how the enemy of Christ, the devil himself, how he displays restless activity to try to bring just one soul under his power. The temptations that he throws at us. We think of the book of Job, the things that Job went through. God allows the devil to tempt him. And the temptations that come upon him. He loses his wealth. He loses pleasures. He loses his honor. He's reduced to sitting on a dung heap, scraping his wounds. In solitude? Nope. Because his friends come and proceed to upbraid him. Job, admit that you have sinned against God and die in peace. And Job, who is just, says, I haven't. The Lord has given, the Lord has taken. Blessed be the Lord forever. I am most interested in working on my salvation, and I will not blaspheme the name of the Lord. So this work of saving our souls, the soul which is of incomparable value, is more important than all other pursuits that we undertake. All other pursuits, which it can only be for temporal and perishable gain. Once again, whether it's riches, honors, or pleasures, they perish. One thing we can say about all men who have lived on this world, they have died. They have died. All these things cannot be used by them anymore. Thus, this work of salvation is not only the most important business, it's also the most necessary business of our lives. Necessity is something that depends on the possible results. And the more advantageous or disastrous the results, the more necessary the work becomes. Thus, the business of our salvation is the most necessary of all the things that we do. Since, in the case of success, the results are the most advantageous. eternal happiness. Eternal happiness. Not just momentary, eternal. And on the other hand, in the case of failure, they are the most disastrous. Eternal torments. If we succeed in this work, infinite happiness awaits us. All other losses are repaired. All is saved. For all eternity, we will be free from all evil. Evil, which is the lack of goodness in something. It's not something that exists on its own, it's the lack of a goodness. Someone's sick, they're lacking health. That's the evil, the sickness, but it's a lack of health. So if we succeed, we'll be free from all evil, and we will possess all good for all eternity, because we will possess God Himself, who is all good. God, who has created everything. All beings have been created by God. And thus to possess God Himself, in a way we possess all things. Thus should we not be more concerned for the success in this work than in any other work we do. It's most necessary for us. And of course, if we fail, the unspeakable disaster that is our lot. Even though all other of affairs that we've performed in life be successful, they will be of no avail if we have not saved our souls. If we have not, rather, cooperated in the work of saving our souls. Because, as I said, as a supernatural, and it's something above us. And we need God's grace to obtain it. So it's a cooperation on our part with this grace that He gives to us. This life of the Holy Trinity that He puts, as we call sanctifying grace, that He puts into the soul. And it requires our cooperation. And if we fail in this, eternal want, eternal misery, eternal reproach, because we know we could have done better. The remorse that torments the damned souls, knowing that just for a little bit, here is the truth but before them now, this is reality. For all eternity now you're going to suffer torments. And you could have avoided it if you had cooperated with the grace that the good God, the good shepherd, has made available to you. And it may have just been a momentary pleasure. Turning their back on God, and at that moment dying, lost forever. As we know, in our lives, it's the way that we lead our lives, often it's the way that we will die. So if we strive to cooperate in our lives, in our daily lives, with God's grace, God will take care of us. It's not just like, boom, all of a sudden I'm damned because one thought. It usually leads up to it. It is the most necessary of works. If we fail, all that is nearest and dearest to us is loss. And it's an irrevocable loss. Because death sets the stage for eternity. That remorse of the damned, all is lost forever, and it could have been saved. Thus, how great, we can say, the madness of those who treat their salvation as if it were the last and the least of their duties. And it's something that we have to reflect on ourselves. Do I treat my salvation as the most important and the most necessary work I have to do? As my most important and most necessary duty in life. It's shown by what we do in our daily lives. Am I remiss in my prayer life? Do I rarely and coldly approach the sacraments? While we hope with the present crisis in the world that there is this coldness is pushed aside, when we realize the things that we lose, that we can lose. The devotion should increase in our hearts for the sacraments. Do I in my daily life shrink from any and every sacrifice? Certainly the present crisis gives us the opportunity to practice sacrifice. How many work as if they had no soul to save? They work to gain the treasures of this life, the pleasures of this life, the honors of this life. And they try to fool themselves to say, well, this is it. Enjoy this life because there's nothing afterwards. Well, each of us has the conscience. Again, the part of the soul, which reminds us there's something else. All these things around us that we know have begun, well, there has to be someone who made them who has no beginning. There has to be a cause that is uncaused, a mover that is unmoved. This is what we call God. And He's given us this soul to save. And instead of thrusting ourselves headlong into the greatest dangers through sin, where we heap sin upon sin, even, sad to say, how many that commit sacrileges, abuse the holy sacraments, treating their salvation as if it were the least of their worries. If we have been remiss, then for the love of the immortal soul that we possess, let us begin now to work out our salvation. Try to do better in this work. Try to push aside the little, sometimes just feelings on our part. I feel that someone has dishonored me and therefore I become upset. My pride wells up. How dare you say that to me? I haven't been noticed. Or for this little pleasure. Despite the past thoughtless neglect that we have shown, we can take hope because we can still succeed in this most important business. The business of saving the most precious thing that we have. The business of attaining to the end for which we have been created. The fact that we are still alive means that we can still put aside the past. We can learn from the past. overcome our neglect, and work out our salvation. All that we have to do is cooperate with the help that God offers. Do our part. And if we do so, we shall gain the great treasure, which our Lord Jesus Christ, the Son of God, has purchased for us at the infinite price of his precious blood. He shed his blood for this purpose. Through the help of the Blessed Virgin Mary, who we turn to as our mother, to ask for her intercession. Through her fiat, he came upon this earth. Through her fiat, he performed this great work. Through her, he began that public life, performing his first miracle at her request. And thus, let us turn to her. We have the month of May coming up, a month especially dedicated to Our Lady. Again, we ask for her intercession to help us to do our part, to gain from her divine Son the graces that we need to do our part. Not only the sanctifying grace to sanctify our souls, but the actual graces to help us to do our part, to overcome the neglect that has been present in our past lives. And above all, let us remember there is the greatest reward that awaits us in this. Nothing less than eternal happiness. In the name of the Father, and the Son, and the Holy Ghost. Amen.